Thank you, everyone. I know this is the last session, so I think we really appreciate everyone staying back and listening to it. I think we've got a fantastic panel over here, a large panel and a very diverse panel with quite a lot of experience and the number of years under the belt. So it should be an interesting discussion. Just to tee off the discussion, let me just start off with re-highlighting. I'm sure through the day you've heard a lot of numbers, you will have heard a lot of elements around growth, but it's just important, even as we start the discussion, to reiterate the fact around the growth that we are seeing from an e-tailing standpoint. I think we've seen about 50% CAGR over the last few years. We expect to see maybe close to 50% over the next few years. The e-tailing industry itself could be about $60 billion by 2020. Interestingly, that's about 7% or 7+% of total retail, which is still what China was in 2013. So it gives us a precedence and gives us a lot more confidence in terms of the growth actually materializing. And I think anyone you speak to, the range may vary from 40% growth to 60 or 70% growth, but no one will debate that growth is there. Now, why I just wanted to start with that is because that obviously means the key enabling factor on logistics being very critical, and that itself would probably see about maybe 5 to 6 to 7 times growth in this period as well, potentially becoming a $5 to $6 billion segment, just e-commerce or e-tailing related logistics over the next 5 odd years. And if this is the kind of market requirement that we see, the asks on pretty much everyone who's sitting around me here become immense, because these are the people who are finally going to deliver on the goods to each of our households, I guess. Just to start off, I think if we look at the number of service providers that are there right now, we have a mix of the captive in-house service providers who have a dominant share right now. We have a lot of e-commerce specialists that are there, and they've grown. They've been born to service the e-commerce companies and have grown with them, the likes of Delivery, e-commerce, e-com express, etc. And then there are the traditional service providers. And what I'll want to start with over here is speak to some of the people on the panel who have been traditional service providers, who've been doing this for the last few decades, and how they have transformed to service the e-commerce industry now. What are some of the key success factors? What are some of the key highlights of their journey? And I'll ask Mr. Bansal from DTDC to maybe start talking and telling us briefly in terms of what has really worked, what has been the journey like, and what does the future look like?
Thank you, Anshuman. I think I'm hiding behind the podium. If you don't mind, can I stand and talk?
Please.
Yeah, better. Okay, friends, good evening. All of you know that DTDC is a very traditional organization for running for 26 years. We started as a document company, moved into parcel company, built ground express network, built international network. But all of this was around traditional delivery of documents and samples and parcels. So when we saw this e-commerce growth, naturally everybody wanted to give this a serious thought. And we were wondering where to start. Because for 26 years we have been doing a particular way. And the challenge with a company like DTDC is different than many other companies, because we have a very large franchisee network running in the country. So it's not a direct change which we can do within the organization. It's a change which requires an external cultural change. So the challenge which we faced is the culture, the organization culture inside the organization. We at the board of directors, we very clearly thought about transforming DTDC into an e-commerce enabler. And to do that, we fixed very clearly 4 transformation pillars. And we decided that no matter how much we go on telling our people day in, day out, it will be hard, that the old habits die hard. It will be very, very hard for them to change. It will take years and years. So the approach which we took was to build the center of excellence parallelly in each of these four transformation pillars. So we wanted to fix B2C deliveries. We wanted to fix B2B deliveries. We wanted to build cross-border international business. And the last piece was we want to build a state-of-the-art e-fulfillment enablement. So for these four pillars of transformation, we decided that we will build center of excellence in each of this independently, and then let the rest of the 10 or 12,000 employees and 10 to 20,000 franchisees and their staff watch this, see this, feel this, and then I'll allow them to make a changeover. And this is what our journey has been, that we built .Jaw to fix the B2C deliveries, a completely separate independent division to build the last mile delivery. We fixed a separate non-stop brand new routes for B2B deliveries, which can do the e-commerce B2B deliveries. We brought a new technology for our international business to fix the cross-border international business so that companies across the world, they can enter India, or sellers in India, they can do their business outside India seamlessly. So we fixed that. And the last part, which we are now building up, and you see in the exhibition here, is the e-fulfillment piece. So I think with that, we now have a clear technology, a clear center of excellence which we can demonstrate. People can see it. Our own internal people can see it. Our franchisee can see it. Their delivery boys can see it. And then, of course, they can now follow very clearly what is already happening in the organization. So I think that has been our journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bansal. That was very interesting. Thank you for sharing the four pillars that you spoke about. I'll move on to Mr. Sharma. Now, Mr. Sharma, again, similar story. Your company has also been there for decades, and you've gone through this journey. What will be interesting, again, to hear your story, also emphasizing on the entire aspect of profitability. All said and done, the entire e-commerce specialists that have come up, I would say they've come up on private equity, investor-backed money, where the valuations were dependent on how many deliveries and how many shipments can you take on. Whereas traditionally, all the traditional service providers like yourselves, profitability has always been one of the key metrics. Now, it'll be great to see, as you've gone through the journey, how have you ensured that profitability is still maintained? And in some ways, do you think the e-commerce segment can actually be serviced in a profitable manner?
Yeah, very good question. Our company was started as a traditional company in 1958. And when I joined in 1982 and today, two things have not changed. One thing is customer is God. Today also I am hearing this, and when I joined that time also I was hearing it. Second thing is reduce the cost. And that I am hearing that time also, today also I am hearing. What has changed in last few years is, number one, the experience part. Everybody now talks about that. Experience has to improve. The second part which has improved, which is in demand, is the visibility. When I joined, I will tell you, around 3 decades back, we used to book the shipment and it used to reach in 15 days and 1 month, and people were comfortable. Now people are not comfortable. Even before booking, they start asking, where is my shipment? So the visibility part has gone very high. How we have coped up with this situation? Number one, we have followed the customer's needs. Our in-house ERP package has helped us that keep what customer is asking, updating ourselves. The second part, keep updating our people. We always keep insiders, promote inside people. So a used talent is available inside. The third part, which is always there, as Mr. Ansuman has said, that profitability. We always focus every day reinvent, every month reinvent, every day review yourself operationally, that are we making bottom line or not. So that has become a day-to-day affair with us and with any logistic provider to survive onto that. Coming back to e-commerce, we are there for B2B segment. We are now marching into B2C segment. But yes, the question of making profit in B2C is a bit challenging. and we are very choosy into that, and we are expanding into that.
Thank you. Thank you. Uh, Mr. Ravikumar, the question I have is, similar to the previous two, your organization has also been there for a really long time. And specifically coming in from an IT side, I think we'll speak as we go forward on the new age technology and innovation that is happening. But you've obviously come in from where you've seen the evolution of technology and the role that technology has played in the past and now as well in the traditional companies. How do you see the role having changed, and how have you managed to get your organization to really adapt to this new age technology, and specifically that is required by the e-tailing segment?
Good evening. It's an interesting question. Usually supply chain is very little understood in the country till now, until this e-com boom has come. Although Gati has been in this business for 25 years plus, fortunately we have been an extremely technology focused company. In fact, most of the solutions were brought in by Gati, and we never felt that we as a logistics company can live without technology. And not only just technology, we always believed in innovating, number one, and most importantly, the favorite word I have is Indianizing the solution, because India is a different country altogether. What works in FedEx, what works in UPS, you cannot cut, copy, paste. Whatever is the technology. If they were to use a scanner, that will cost $1.5 lakh. You can't afford to give a scanner to each and every person. So you always believed in Indianizing a solution which can meet our country's requirement in terms of ease of use and in terms of cost. So if I have to provide a solution, I always looked at Indianizing it and providing what was available in $1.5 lakh or 10,000. And in India there are different languages. So how can my pickup guy or a delivery guy can also use Hindi instead of English? So in every step, the first and foremost thing is we jumped into e-com pretty early, and we always used technology, and without putting our technology first, we never ventured into anything. And since the focus has been on technology and innovation, it runs into the culture. If you have heard from morning till now, everybody has spoken about culture and technology and innovation. So these three has to be ingrained into a company for them to succeed, and we think that is one big strength we have in terms of rolling out any new things, and it gets adapted very, very, very fast. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Just moving on, I think I'll first go to Malay in just speaking about one of the aspects is you're looking specifically at e-commerce logistics. Now, within the larger organization as well, there are lots of different type of requirements that are coming about, right? If you look at the customer requirements that are there, from the small mobile phones to the heavy shipments that we spoke about, from the tier 1 metro deliveries to tier 3, tier 4, at least if we look at what our assessment says, about nearly 30% or 25 to 30% by 2020 will actually be tier 3, tier 4 or rural. And an increasing share will be the heavier shipments as well. So a lot of changing customer requirements that do exist. So how do you see traditional players dealing with this? And in some ways, is this coming back to play to the advantage of traditional players as against the e-commerce specialists there?
I think, Anshuman, thanks for asking that question, because this really opens up a big time debate that whether it's good to become a specialist in certain things or rather keep on doing all the things, right? So at least I can share our experiences back there in Diesel. So Diesel traditionally has been a 3PL organization. So it's typically not a network company. It's a 3PL organization into the business of warehousing, so typically the fulfillment centers and the distribution. So distribution is something to us is not new. But in the process, what has happened is that
The moment when you handle the, say, warehouse, you have to do the last mile delivery, correct? And these last mile deliveries are essentially driven by B2B. Over a period of time, what has happened is our experience has primarily been in consumer durables. So, and we realize that many e-commerce organizations want their heavies and bulkies, or maybe somebody's furniture, someone now the double door refrigerators, washing machine, dishwashers. So I think it was luckily, and we were lucky enough to be in the same field. We, over a period of time, whatever experience we have or have gathered in terms of handling the heavy goods, which are typically anything above 30 kilos, right, is something which we have been able to effectively handle it. And there's another aspect to it, and I must take a moment to maybe dwell upon that aspect. In any B2C, especially if it's in the heavies or consumer durables, your delivery doesn't end at the doorstep. And the amount of focus which e-commerce companies have on the customer experience, I must say that if a logistics company gets a time or a chance to enter inside the house of any of the customer, they become extremely paranoid about that. Because that is the first time ever somebody physically is going to get into their house. So it's unlike it's not like going ahead and delivering a book or a CD, which generally gets received right at the doorstep, correct? So here it is, we enter into the house of any of the customers, and you have to deliver it. So right from typically the grooming, right from the way he is supposed to speak, and though we definitely have difficulties, living up to all the expectations, but that's a fundamental difference. So I will say that, over a period of time, we see a lot of these heavies coming in, and one point in time, we always used to think that why should somebody go and order a TV or a music system or any of those large products. But yes, we have started seeing a lot of shipments coming in. And trust us, handling that is a bit different and requires certain amount of expertise, especially when you go and do a B2C delivery.
Thank you, Malay. Dhruv, coming to you, I think it's it's interesting as to we are talking about so many complexities and the role that innovation, of course, has to play in all of this, right? And innovation from a perspective of we never had access to so much of data. We never had a ready access, at least from an India standpoint, to so much of new developments in technology happening, right? So it'll be interesting to get your thoughts on what are the key developments that you're seeing and how critical is this going to be between a very successful service provider vis-a-vis there are so many service providers who are not making money or who will not end up being successful.
So I think you rightly identified that data is the next differentiator, right? So I see technology and innovation in two layers in India, especially. So there are logistics companies or any other company, and there is first layer of tech, which is the ERP or TMS or WMS sort of solutions that we typically deploy to bring certain level of processes, basic automation to our systems and our organization. Then comes the next level of technologies, which are more advanced algorithms, big data, map data, location intelligence, consumer analytics, all those sort of things. Now, if you see in India, all the tier 1 companies have, of course, I think 5 years back only, they have crossed the first hurdle of having basic ERP, TMS, WMS in place. Now, they are looking at the next big thing. And there are so many companies doing various sort of innovation, in terms of algorithms, big data, and all those sort of things that I mentioned. I think there are a lot of challenges, and the biggest solution that we see so far is data aggregation, right? So since India never had power of data, and now we are having so many data sources, there are solutions which are emerging which can collect these data from multiple sources from within the organization or outside the organization, and then impact the basics, which, as Mr. Sharma said, customer service and cost, right? Because customer is always going to be God, and cost is always going to be an issue. So how do you leverage these new cutting-edge data aggregation tools or big data analytics to improve your customer satisfaction, customer service, and at the same time reduce cost. Because now it is no longer an option that I'll only focus on customer experience or I'll only focus on cost. In today's date, you have to focus on both. And that's where a lot of companies went wrong recently last year, where they only focused maybe on customer experience and did not focus on cost. Or maybe a lot of traditional companies who are focusing only on cost and not customer experience, which now in last few years, they have also woken up and they are focusing equally on both the sides. So I think those sort of solutions will be the winners, especially as we're talking about last mile. There are a bunch of new technologies that have evolved from real-time route planning, real-time tracking, real-time analytics, and so on. What we have seen typically is that having more presence of such players in Indian market, having more global players tweaking their solution for India and other emerging market and other emerging geographies is the sign that these are the next big things evolving. For example, we also started in the US. In 2013 end, we started Loginext in the US. Then turned out there's a bigger wave in India going on, right? With all this e-commerce, courier. And if you see in last 2 years, majority of the innovation and revolution or startups have evolved in the space of logistics, starting from cab companies to e-commerce companies to hyperlocal companies and whatnot, right? So I think that's where we also moved to India, and we saw much larger growth in India and Southeast Asia and Middle East than we could actually see it in a short amount of time in Western countries. So I think, just to summarize, that's where we are going. A lot of data-backed solution, a lot of location intelligence is coming up. A lot of challenges are also there because of the unorganized way these markets work, starting from the addressing system that we are talking about, right? That a basic geocoding, converting the address string into a pair of latitude, longitude becomes a challenge in internal parts of India. So having solutions where multiple map data can feed into and ultimately create something which is a better accuracy level in terms of geocoding as a solution that we are talking about these days. So I think a good ecosystem is evolving, and they are focusing on now tier 2, tier 3 cities of India. And the moment we crack tier 2, tier 3 in terms of advanced tech, advanced innovation, I think the entire India is there for you, entire world is there for you. As Mr. Ravi Kumar also mentioned that once you crack this basics of India, you can probably do it anywhere else in the world.
Maybe it's best to use the people playing Pokemon Go now to map the thing out for you.
That is actually a great idea.
But just on the same topic, Vaibhav, to you as well, the entire role of technology, and obviously you do a lot of enablement for companies from a technology standpoint, right? How are you seeing the uptake of technology as far as traditional logistics service providers are concerned? And these are people who've, of course, again, been doing businesses for a very long time, have their own way, have invested already a lot in their traditional systems, etc. How are you seeing that uptake happening as you look to service them?
Sure. So, very short answer is pretty bad, actually. So there is generally one organization inertia that most of the company has developed over a period of time, that they do not go outside the comfort zone. Too much focus on the bottom line and top line is what keeps them there. So if you see in 1935 and 1890, there was a huge ice harvesting industry. They used to harvest ice, and the whole focus of that industry was to build a better shoe horse and a saw to cut ice, store the ice, and then sell that ice in summer days, right? It was a multi-billion-dollar industry. They all kept investing in the horses and carriage. Nobody thought that what will come and kill this industry. And somebody just used the simple law of thermodynamics, right? And created a compressor which can create ice on demand anywhere. Within 8 years, the entire ice harvesting industry got to zero, right? Because nobody in the ice harvesting industry thought about compressor. Then there was a huge industry about ice factories. And the investment was all about doing a bigger and bigger compressors. Nobody thought there that what if we can make a small compressor? And somebody made a very small compressor, and he created a refrigerator which you can put in the house, which killed more than 85% of the ice factory industry. Logistics industry today kind of stands there, right? So to be very honest with you, the uptake is only with the companies which are willing to go outside the comfort zone, and they have extremely good clarity of their purpose. They know that what they're standing on and how the world will evolve 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And they have a very clear idea that if I want to change, I want to put something separate outside without the influence of my existing organizational processes, inertia, and the whole bureaucracy that comes in our organization. Those are the companies we see are the ones who get it, they adopt it, and they deploy their resources not for today. They deploy their resources for tomorrow. Right? We see postal operators. We work with a lot of postal operators in Southeast Asia region. They now start to understand. So for example, last week, the chairman of SingPost, which is one of the largest postal operator, in AGM, he said that SingPost is standing on a burning platform. This ship is going to burn. Right? We got to reinvent ourselves and do something else. And this is what they've been doing. So uptake is less, but as new companies coming in, logistics companies are more, at least willing to understand it and apply their resources there. Where the advantage that the existing logistics companies have as compared to the logistics startup companies is that they have a massive capex already done, right? So they have infrastructure, they have people, they have trucks, they have vehicles. And they apply a new thought process to implement technologies for the future.
Thank you, Vaibhav, and I think we'll come back to the challenges, etc., that are being faced and what could be some of the threats. But I want to cover one last part with Anup before going there is, a lot of what was spoken was around also last mile fulfillment and the entire conference about last mile fulfillment, right? And specifically, you kind of represent in this panel one of the more new age service providers that are there that is looking to solve a specific problem, probably a critical problem right now through using innovative models, innovative measures in the physical world itself to get to the customer, right? So I'd love to hear from you on what you see as being the most critical requirements for us to be able to provide that required last mile fulfillment. How is the challenges of reverse logistics something that service providers are actually dealing with, and what kind of innovation are we seeing in the physical world itself?
Thanks. My name is Anup. I actually represent Quick Carry Logistics. It's a part of a bigger group called Realix Industries. So we have been into logistics for more than a decade now, but we are moving on to e-logistics since last 1 year. So it's always a good thing to talk at the very last because you get to hear all the thoughts and consolidate them well and present the idea. So everybody here is trying to solve one problem, that's the delivery, right? As Mr. Sharma rightly pointed out, that the customer is got, right? So what exactly you need is to keep your customers happy. So what we basically do is, that's nothing new to the industry. Probably it's new in India, but it's nothing new to the industry. What we are trying to do is reaching out to your neighbors or the kirana shops that are nearby you. We do a tie-ups with them, right? And eventually, whenever a customer asks for some sort of a delivery to be made to his or her place, so instead of doing that, they can choose the nearby location where we can drop the things off, right? So it doesn't have to be that at their doorsteps. Sometimes what happens in the tier 1, tier 2 cities, you have nuclear families with husband, wife, both of them working. And they start working at 9 a.m. in the morning and come back at 8 or 9 p.m. in the evening. So that's the basically time frame where you have to get your goods delivered. So it's not always possible to deliver the goods at your own place. So it's very convenient that we deliver it to some place else other than your home place. And when it comes to the reverse logistics part, so you would have seen probably have experienced it in the retail that Amazon, Flipkart, and everybody has this policy that you order it, try it, if you don't like it, send it back, right? It can happen numerous times because the end consumer or the customer doesn't have to bear the cost of that, right? So there have been a lot of studies that have been done around reverse logistics and how we can handle that and how we can modify that and how we can optimize it. And probably Mr. Sangvi would have a lot of ideas about how to implement their logistics or their innovative ideas and analytics, IoT, or probably the data warehousing and everything to make that cost as less as possible. It's very less compared to what the cost of overall logistic department that you see, but it's still very significant. And if you consider to and fro more than 2 or 3 times, the actual cost of a good could be lesser than what you spend on the logistics, right? So that is where we are currently focusing on, and basically what we do is tailored service provides, right? So we are very new to this business. Probably we are newest of all the lot, right? So we are very nimble in that sense. So what we are trying to do is cater to the requirement that the customer has. Instead of just doing the traditional services that pick the good up from there and just deliver it to the end customer, what we do is we listen to the customer, what they exactly want from us. Would they want the end-to-end delivery to be made? Would they want the shipment to be picked up from one place or delivered to the other place? Or what exactly would they need? Would they need the packing services as well? Would they need the unpacking services as well? So we are trying to analyze the market, and we are trying to find our niche into the market. So that's where we are foraying into right now, along with other things. Thank you.
Thanks.